Foul weed of pure evil. Yo, what's going on? It's someone that's no one, and welcome back to today's report. Today's report is coming from Daedulous off Erowid. When this happened, 2002. The drugs used were alcohol, cannabis, Datura, and MDMA. The route administration was through AT. Gender, male. Weight, 160 pounds. Height, 6 feet. And his prior experience, Xanax and MDMA. So this is more of a collective review of a user's addiction with Datura, actually. Yeah, sounds weird, doesn't it? I'm just going to leave it at that. So you guys are going to find this one interesting. Let's just dive right into it. I'm writing this report in the hopes that someone wanting to try Datura, aka Jimson weed, will read it and think otherwise. Everything started about 6 or 7 months ago. I have been an avid psychonaut for more than a few years, and have tried everything I could get my hands on. The school year was coming to a close, and I had been partying quite a bit, doing mostly synthetic drugs. A couple of bad experiences with Xanax and MDMA made me want to stay away from designer drugs for a while. At the time, I had been reading Carlos Castaneda's Don Juan series and was becoming more and more intrigued by the yerba del diablo that is so prevalent in these stories. So I began researching the substance online. I found out a great deal of information on the plant. Seemed like nobody had bad things to say about it except the idiots that took too much. I live in Texas, so Jimson weed grows everywhere. The first plant I took specimens from was near where I worked at the time. I started my experiment small, with 1 flower and 3 mid-sized leaves. I had a great night, not too intense, but enough to show me what this plant could do. The next day, I didn't notice any of the vision impairment that most people talk about, just really bad dry mouth and an inability to remember many of the events of the night before. The next weekend rolls around, and I'm looking for something to do as usual. I went out that day and collected a bunch of leaves and 2 flowers. I went to a friend's house and told him what I had. He was skeptical and a little afraid to take it. I cooked up a batch for both of us and hurriedly drank it off, offering the other half to my pal. I once again had a great night and tripped my balls off. My friend said he felt nothing but a tightness in the throat and not being able to sleep. 2 days later, I was going to a party and didn't feel like dealing with the BS involved with finding drugs. So I went to the neighborhood Datura plant. I made a very strong brew, then I called it heroic and a righteous sacrament. Now I call it plain fucking stupid. I drank it an hour prior to the party and was already on my way when I got there. While there, I got thoroughly trashed, drinking keg beer and impressing people with my ability to drink massive amounts of hard liquor without passing out. It seems alcohol had a strange effect when mixed with this stuff. By the end of the night, I was completely delirious and really freaking people out. Luckily, I had a few friends there who made me leave with them before the cops were called. They told me they were going to bring me to Jay's house. About 10 seconds later, I forgot where we were going and told the driver he could just let me out anywhere. He said no. At the next light we stopped, I asked how much I owed for the ride. I really thought I was in a yellow, checkered cab. Later in the ride, I tried to exit the vehicle on the highway, stating, 5th and Lamar, that's my stop. Thank God someone else was in the back seat with me, or I might have made it out the door. I decided to stay away from it a while after that, but didn't make it very far. About 4 days after the party, I got a fair amount of extremely good kind bud. Of course, the best thing to do with nugs is roll a big fat cone, so that's exactly what I did. So I get a good homeboy, and we start puffing away. Halfway through the thing, I notice small variations on my peripheral vision, and a body high very different from Mary Jane. My buddy looks over at me, staring off into space, and tells me that I look zoinked. I peer into my watch face to discover that I have a full set of moon eyes. After a couple minutes, I am fully tripping, but not having fun. It seems like all the Datura peaks came back to me at once. No gradual buildup, just full visuals and auditory hallucinations. This only lasted 15 to 20 minutes, but it sure did freak me out. After smoking weed a few more times, I found that it was only the really good stuff that made it come back like that. A few people found out that I knew a way to make people trip for free. I told them I would make it, but they had to bring me the plants. I told them where a few could be procured, and they went out one night and pulled up 2 whole plants. They came back, and I cooked up a batch and also instructed them on how to do so. These 3 kids drank the stuff and then bailed, leaving me with about 1.5 plants worth of leaves and flowers plus a few seed pods. I didn't want to take anything that night because I was going through some shit with my girlfriend. I sat around a while, probably drank a few beers, then something weird started happening. I was on the couch. The plant material was in a box in a corner behind me. The TV was on, so there was plenty of noise at the time. It's very hard to describe, but it was almost like a deafening silence would come from the corner on regular intervals, almost like a foghorn. This noise would come about every minute or so and leave after maybe 10 seconds. I would turn around and look to where it was coming from, but every time I did, it would stop. I eventually cooked up a dose and sat around the house all night staring at the walls and talking to people that weren't there. I awoke the next morning to a blinding light in my eyes. After a quick location check, I found that I was on the roof. At this time, I had a sock tied across my forehead. I was in my boxers alone, which had somehow been torn almost to shreds. A phone cord was tied to my left ankle, and my knees were badly skinned up. I was obviously very confused by all this. I still can't remember what I did that night. This cycle went on for a few months. Before long, I was doing it at least twice a week, and hallucinating almost constantly because of all the bud I was smoking. I lost many friends during this time, most of them because of how much I had changed. Towards the end, I could feel myself losing any remnants of a soul. I felt really dumb all the time. I couldn't remember the simplest things, like my girlfriend's phone number. I eventually lost her too because of Datura. It was taking at least 3 minutes to answer any question I was asked. The few friends that still hung out with me got tired of it and started making many decisions for me. I was completely in her grips and couldn't stop taking it. All summer was lost to her. When the school year started again, I became extremely pissed off and depressed because I couldn't take her as much and I couldn't do it at school. The depression lasted about a month. I had even started doing a lot of synthetic drugs again to try to make myself happy. I got real skinny and lost even more friends. I still would do Datura on the weekends, and on one occasion, I can remember, still disturbs me. I had done a big dose on a Sunday afternoon. This brew contained a handful of leaves and maybe 30 dry seeds crushed up. All the hallucinations I saw that night were red. Before they had been a rainbow of shimmers. This time, just red. I even dreamed in red. When I woke up the next morning, I felt as if I could demolish a house with my bare hands. I wanted to lift heavy things and break something. I also remember saying aloud, I think I'll hurt someone today. I went off to school after smoking some reefer. When I got there, I stopped to talk to this kid who wanted to buy some ganja off me. While I was standing there, someone walking by stepped on my foot. For some reason, this just set me off. I took a few steps towards this kid who now had his back to me, walking away. I want to say before going on that I am normally not a violent person. I am 6 foot tall and very strong though, so I don't have to be. Most people leave me alone. I grabbed this kid by the back of his neck and pushed him face first into a brick wall. When I turned him around, he was already bleeding. I proceeded to pummel this guy, beating him about the face and chest. I kicked his ass bad, and when I finally let him go, 3 of his friends were coming my way. They didn't make it. I was like a man possessed. I could see the bloodlust. It was like a red film permeating my vision. The first kid I got took a left hook in the mouth and spit out a tooth. The second got butt-headed and thrown bodily from the fray. I tackled the one who hadn't made a move yet and sat on his chest, punching him until he passed out. It took a cop and 2 hall monitors to restrain me. I claimed they tried to jump me, so I only got suspended. I was actually commended for being able to fend off 4 guys. This really freaked me out. I don't like to hurt people, but at the time, it seemed like the only option. I couldn't have stopped myself if I wanted to. One weekend I was determined not to do her anymore, so I went out to a show. I came in contact with a dealer I knew a long time back, and she hooked me up with the best rolls I have ever had. Pure MDMA. There's just nothing like it. I ate 2 double stacks that night and was actually able to open up and talk to someone about all the bad shit I had been doing. I saw through her lies for the first time. I would no longer be under her control. Slowly but surely, with the absence of Datura in my system, my soul and life started returning along with my cognitive brain functions. Since that night, I haven't gone near her or wanted to, and I feel fucking wonderful. The joy of a beautiful day now replaces the want to drink Madman Brew. I still do synthetic drugs, but not very often. The HPPD caused by the Datura still returns mildly whenever I get really stoned, but I can live with it. As a final note, it is true that Datura can bring glorious insights and even power if I desire it, but it does so at a very high cost. I am still trying to rebuild the many bridges I burned and get back to my life as it was before. Please, if you are thinking about trying this dangerous drug, just learn from my story. It's not worth the pain. I'm probably very lucky I didn't die taking the large doses I did. Peace and Buddha bless. Wow, that's some report. A great account with Datura addiction, something I think we're covering for the first time. But if you don't know very much about Datura, let's break it down a little so we all have a fair understanding. Datura is a naturally growing plant pretty much found in all parts of the world. There's like 11 different species, I believe, all with the potential for tripping, but the experience itself is often avoided by people. Normally those who take it are ignorant of the delirious effects it can bring. Datura itself is classified as a poison, so that can somewhat give you an idea of the effects that can result from it. Physically, it will dehydrate you, it can cause heart problems, motor loss control, fatigue, muscle spasms, and more. What you'll experience cognitively can vary widely, but typically all the classical delirium effects will be present, such as seeing people not there, shadow people, confusion, memory loss, inability to comprehend, motivation loss, and more. For the most part, it isn't an experience you want to have. Now, there are those that lie in the X factor. This I would consider if you're taking Datura for spiritual or psychotic purposes, or in this case, where you happen to be the anomaly that finds Datura enjoyable and the drug for you. But trying it's one thing. Trying it over a long period of time, that's a whole nother thing. I really couldn't imagine his mental state at any given time during this period. I imagine he must have felt empty a lot of the time, but something about it was satisfying for him. Maybe coupled with the effects he enjoyed, he liked having his mind in such a place. But we can see that as an addiction, it is up there with some of the classics like heroin or meth, in that it can completely ruin your life. But I guess from the average person's perspective, I'm sure it sounds crazy to do Datura, especially in this way, but for him, comparably, the feeling he desired caused him to do such things. He did seem addicted psychologically for the most part. He is definitely a lucky individual. He not only committed acts of violence, but doing that for so long and being able to comprehend and continue on with his life in the way he proposed and tell the story, seems like he is extremely lucky. Some people experience Datura only once and they have long-lasting issues. To only have HPPD come up when you smoke weed, I would consider extremely lucky. Even then, when we look at the nights when he was drinking all of that alcohol, the beer and hard liquor, you can only imagine the risk this guy was at. His body and mind definitely took a beating from this, but regardless, dude must have been built like a tank to come out the way he did. But we can also see the healing potential of MDMA in this report. And I wouldn't just call it some synthetic substance. It probably opened his emotions that have been dulled from his experience with Datura, which, all in all, I'm happy this guy made it out. He went through some shit to say the least. But let's bring up our last Datura report and see how it compares with this. 2 Lives by Unforgiven, which, in his report, he tells a pretty classic deliriant tale where he ended up tripping for 2 days and it felt like 10 hours. He saw people who weren't there and really didn't have a good grasp of what was going on. And that's comparable to this report here, depending on which part we focus on, but for the most part, this report definitely stands out in ways from past Datura reports. I guess it only took months of use to really bring out some of the regret and realization that it can be a delirious hell. So I'm going to end it off there. If you guys want to see more Datura or any deliriance or any substance, let me know in the comments below. If you guys like the video, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, follow the socials. It's been someone that's known, and I'll see you guys next time. Peace out.